Welcome to you all. This is Behind the Music. My name is Andrew Chung. I'm artistic producer of London Symphonia. And Behind the Music is our series of pre-concert chats with our guest artists and key contributors. It gives our audience a chance to understand what's going on behind that music that they hear on concert night. So with me today, I've got Aviva Chernick. Hello, Aviva.
Hello, Andrew. Great to see you.
You too. And Scott Good. Hey, Scott.
Hi, good to see you.
Great. So I'm just going to read a little bit about them and embarrass them. So Aviva as an award-winning singer and teacher of voice and meditation. Aviva Chernick sings in Hebrew, Ladino, and English. She was the first Canadian to be awarded a Virginia Folk Life Apprenticeship to continue study with American national treasure and Sephardic musician Flory Jagoda, whose music she celebrates in her most recent album, La Serena. With her musical ensembles, Aviva has toured across Canada, the United States, Israel, Brazil, and most recently to Dubai. Aviva is also trained in the cantorial arts and as a meditation teacher through the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. She leads the meditation and singing community in Toronto called Ne Shev. Scott is London Symphonia's composer-in-residence. And in this role, he has composed new works, arranged for and conducted concerts, developed youth programs, and is an important part of the artistic planning team. As an orchestral composer, he has been commissioned by many orchestras, including l'Orchestre Symphonique de Montréal, National Arts Centre Orchestra, Esprit, Kitchener-Waterloo Symphony Orchestra, Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra, and the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, where he was composer-in-residence there. We are so lucky to have you both on this program. So,
Thanks, Andrew.
Firstly, Aviva, can you describe the concert's titled Tiferet? I'm only hoping that I got the pronunciation right. Can you explain what this means?
Yeah, well, actually, truth be told, Tiferet was Scott's idea. Found the word and was as we were remembering, the word called him as we were exploring different possibilities of a title. Tiferet is the third of the seven sefirot in the mystical understanding of the emanations, divine emanations, and I think that we were called to Tiferet, which translates as, I mean, you can translate it many ways, but beauty, compassion, and also as an attribute or as a divine emanation, it's a balance between the first two, which are chesed, and I just had a complete blank. The first two, loving kindness, and the second one, which is completely escaping my mind. I'm sure it'll come to me as we go along. So it's a balance between those first two places. So balance. And I think
there's an element of strength in it too, I remember. Is that
right? Gvura. Thank you. Gvura. Yeah. So chesed and gvura, loving kindness and strength, or boundary, flow of love and boundaried strength. And right, Scott, am I?
Yeah, there's you actually know a lot more about it, more peripheral of interest, but I did find it quite interesting that this concept of beauty, if you look at the sort of the tree of life, it kind of sits in the middle, and it is that kind of balancing act. And I've always thought that music itself is kind of a balancing act between, these two sides of the human, the emotional and the intellectual, say, or So I just thought it was a very interesting word, and it seemed to be quite musical, and it seemed to be discussing things that we were pursuing in our concert with the program. So
I love it. Yeah. And Scott, so you're a co-curator of the concert, and when you and I first talked about planning a concert involving Aviva, you went to work and you researched things, and what did you find? Where did that land you?
It was an interesting thing because our I guess our grand sort of large missive of the orchestra is that we like to do concerts that feature different cultures, maybe, and so we're looking at the Jewish culture, Jewish composers, and so I started looking into various composers, and one, of course, there's so many that it's kind of overwhelming to think about what to choose. But one thing that I found that was quite interesting, that attracted me a lot, was the name Ernest Bloch came up quite often in people who are interested in the connection between the Jewish culture and the Western classical tradition. In fact, he's somewhat heralded in this regard as being a composer who, say, wears who they are on their sleeve, but does it in a very sort of sophisticated kind of way. So I actually ended up listening to a lot of his music. I wouldn't say all of his music, but almost all of his orchestral music, and was so delighted to find that there was such a great variety. That's actually what kind of blew me away, was the quality and then the overall variety of the number of ways in which he spoke his music.
Mhm.
So I thought that would be a really great idea to feature him, as he's actually not maybe prominent as much as he should be. I guess that's an opinion. And then, of course, on the other side, as an orchestra, we want to play as well as share with the audience great masterworks of the classical tradition. And the Mahler's Adagio from the 10th Symphony is truly one of those pieces. And I knew that we had a somewhat reserved forces, and so we have to be cognizant of that when we're choosing which pieces. However, we found which looked like quite an excellent arrangement already done of this symphony. So that helped us make the decision, as often Mahler's works, including the symphony, are for gargantuan orchestral forces, to be honest. So we're really excited to share this more intimate, and I think it will be absolutely beautiful and very orchestral work for the Adagio from Mahler.
And if you were to take an entire Mahler symphony and plonk it in the middle of this concert, it would blow it quite out of proportion. So the Adagio on its own is it approaching 20 minutes long, right?
Yeah, it's right around there. Yeah,
that's amazing.
It's an interesting piece in that it was meant to be the first movement of one of his. Yes, I mean, Mahler does do that. He writes symphonies where the first movement is the length of what is normally an entire symphony of another composer.
Yeah.
So, and that's truly kind of what this piece is. I don't know if I would want to call the Adagio a symphony on its own in a way, because it is only one movement and it does have that Adagio feel, but the scope of the work in terms of its emotional reaching to me is actually kind of symphonic in nature. It's quite... It really, there's moments of real simplicity and clarity. There's moments of tremendous angst. So yeah, it gets to show everything within those 20 minutes. So I'm really excited.
I can't wait to play it. I've never played that, so it's
Right.
going to be a real treat. Now, Aviva, when you were approached to collaborate in this concert, probably approached by me, do you recall, was it immediately clear what you would do or what you would sing? Or did you work with Scott and Scott said, hey, we should do these pieces? And you're like, okay. Or how did that happen?
Well, I think that Scott is very much the mastermind behind this concert. I took the invitation, delighted and honored by you and the Symphonia. And then I took Scott's lead because this is his area of expertise. My music is my area of expertise. And as I the way I convey it this evening when we're in front of with the audience, that will be my expertise in bringing the emotionality and those skills of musicality. But Scott leads in terms of relationship to the orchestra and how my pieces, how he would envision them. So I wouldn't have necessarily chosen the same pieces that Scott chose. And actually, we may have wrestled a little bit about a few of them. So we got together. I guess the story is that we got together, we had tea, we got together on the phone, we've talked and talked and talked and talked. And Scott really did his research, and he had a very clear plan. And I think, unless I'm sugarcoating it, for the most part, I was like, okay, like I think you know this world, and I am without my band.
Hmm.
So, most of the time when I tell people I'm doing this concert, they're like, and the band is with you, and then the orchestra. But this is very different. This is a very different concept than I've seen most of my friends who would normally be with a world and Western music band. Uh, is that I had to really surrender into the process of of being of letting the music be in this orchestral context
Hmm.
and trusting Scott as my guide there. So
It's
that's
a real leap of faith, isn't it? I mean,
yes,
to
it is. It really is. Yeah,
yeah,
and it
and
feels that way as I practice. It's even more because sometimes I'm speaking with Scott and I'm like, can you just tell me what will this moment be like? What might this moment be like? Just actually, even in terms of, um, I've yet to on this day when you're all watching this, in this moment, I've yet to be with an orchestra,
mhm,
right? I've been with choirs, I've been with bands, I've been with 1,000 people at a folk festival,
mhm,
been with house concerts. I've been at Kerner Hall.
mhm.
I've never been on stage with that many beautiful instrumentalists, Western classical collection behind me, beside me, I should say, with me.
Mhm.
So Scott has been my guide, and absolutely delighted about it,
Oh, great.
and challenged
And
properly.
challenged. Yeah, yeah. It's very exciting, right? It's in terms of you've done so many things in your career. Oh my goodness. But now we're managing to put you out of your comfort zone.
I think that's where the best art gets made,
Hmm.
is when we're at our edge,
Yeah.
positively so. But my practice is different. I have to imagine into the orchestra, and the growing edge, I think, is where the most exciting art gets made.
Yeah, that's beautifully put. Beautifully put. Now, okay, so a little bit of like musical lexicon just for a minute. So as I understand it, if you create an arrangement of something, that's how the words and the music flow together. And whether you have an instrumental solo here, or whether you've got your chorus or you've got your verse. So I felt like as I understood it, that the arrangements were largely set from performances previously that you've done, Aviva, and then Scott came in and he orchestrated it. So he's assigning orchestral instruments to particular musical threads, musical lines, and using his imagination um, for that purpose to kind of bring it into an orchestral platform. Do I have that right?
Well, Scott, I mean, I'll let Scott speak to it as well, but I would say in some cases, we haven't, I don't think any of the pieces, we didn't pull apart any of the pieces and maybe just take a melody line and start from the beginning. I don't know that that exactly happened. Scott had actually um, all of the arrangements that were the inspiration,
Mhm.
the arrangements were on recording. So they're from the second last album called When I Arrived, You Were Already There, Here, There. Having some memory.
Here.
Here, thank you. That's why you
Yeah.
have partners in your work. And from this recent album, Less Said, and I think there are three, I think it's three and three from each album.
Yeah.
And so that's what I actually just sent Scott. Here are my recordings, and maybe here's some videos of me. But we went from those recordings. But then I would say Scott has done, in some cases, original arrangement, newly original from the original arrangements. Now. Uh, um, Refreshed arrangements and orchestrated them. So that's my experience of what has happened, and there's been a lot of collaboration about it, around it, in it, and again, it's definitely Scott had to lead. who's playing what should be. Of course, at first I was just like, but who will be the guitar? Like it was that simple for me because
Yeah.
in a lot of this work, especially in the Judeo-Spanish folk music that I play, Joel Schwartz he's been really my primary partner. So to lose that relationship, maybe was the place of most kind of I want to say discomfort. And so for Scott to find that we had to um, right, we navigated the conversations about what instrument would most people were presenting that, and then how did I feel about that instrument, and
Mhm.
sort of opening my mind and heart to the way the sounds would be different. So that I guess is orchestration, but I'll pass to you, Scott, about arranging.
I just think that description was great. Like some of and I just wanted to mention one piece. So we kind of sort of joke about that it turned out this way, but one of the pieces that's in a way the most orchestrated, in the sense that the timing of everything is the same. It's not like that there's any arranging of pieces, or the voice is singing basically exactly the same as the recording and all that sort of thing. Was a piece that was actually based on an improvisation that was an improvisation. So that's kind of a sort of an interesting chain of events, that there was some improvising going on, and then some post work done in the studio to bring in other sounds and move things around, and then to take that and then sculpt it into actually a written out orchestration. So that piece,
Also, it's never been performed, that
and
piece.
it's never been performed.
Right.
That piece comes from, the melodies come from me, inspired by and also by another traditional piece, and Scott is bringing it actually onto the stage for the first time.
Right.
That's one of the when I've played your music, Scott, that's one of the neat things. I think you do have a very improvisatory spirit, and you've got certain ways of writing in the music, that things are just kind of they're bubbling underneath, and you just
Right.
kind of do this with your instrument, and you're just kind of in a, could be, and then something magnificent emerges, and you've got a very interesting way of writing that's different than other composers who I've played. So yeah, that's really neat. And in terms of the guitar, circling back to that,
Yeah.
who takes up the guitar? Or we have a harp on the program, for instance. Does that help you?
It's kind of a funny instrument to bring up now, but yeah, I mean that, of course, being a plucking instrument, has a tendency to want to, although it resonates very differently than a guitar. And with a guitar, you have so much, and I play guitar a bit, so I do know a little bit about the instruments, but you have such an intimacy of the hand on the strings and the way you play it. Whereas the harp is a more free ringing instrument. It is sort of more unbound by its sound. So that's why you get these big, lush sort of harp, sort of a stereotypical sound. It's actually because if they want that to not be the case, they have to constantly be muting strings that are just ringing and resonating. So, I try to write, say harp parts that are sort of with the hands nice and close, so that they can constantly be muting and try and get more of a guitar-like sound. In fact, oh no, I did. I'm sorry. I'm working on another piece right now, but I had the harp strum like a guitar. I have done that a few times. So they play the guitar, play the harp like this, strumming. You can try and imitate the sound of the guitar. And of course, the other most sort of clear translation is pizzicato strings.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can pluck, and then you can actually, so if you have a few of them doing it, you can start to imitate like a multi-voiced guitar-esque like sound, but nothing is like a guitar. And that is going to be, I think, one of the most challenging aspects of trying to realize that quality. When a guitar is playing, it's covering many parts by one person. It's sort of like a pianist. Like you can write in a way for piano where one person is realizing it, but when you orchestrate it, it's many minds that have to coordinate.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to do that? These subtle little effects.
We'll find out soon. We'll find out very
so.
soon. So Aviva, we've got 6 songs that will be sung by you. And there's at the heart of of your music and your training is Flory Jagoda. So your mentor, she died just last year at the age of 97. Incredible. Can you tell me about a little bit about her? Just like, oh my goodness, how do you encapsulate that in a couple minutes? But she had such an enormous impact on you and your music.
Yeah, she really did. Um, yeah, I miss her. She had dementia, so I've missed her for a while.
Mm.
Um, but certainly that's a very small part of what I recall about our time together. As you mentioned, she's known in the United States as an American national treasure and the mother of the Balkan Judeo-Spanish folk tradition. And I am not an ethnomusicologist, so I'll share with you a little bit just for those who don't know what Sephardic music is. Actually, maybe one more step back. Andrea, I promise I'll answer the question. But I just want to contextualize the Jewish music piece. It's exactly what Scott said. There's so much Jewish music. Um, there's no one Jewish culture. There's a Jewish, there's a Torah and there's a faith, and then there's where people go with it and what culture they live in based on where they are and how they've incorporated the culture of the places where they are with their Jewish practice and how that's all woven together. So that's just to say we've chosen, like, as you say in Hebrew, like tip tipa, like a tiny little taste of what could be the four opening songs that are in conversation with the block. That's where I see that word Tiferet really at play. That in conversation and balance with the block pieces are from Jewish prayer, are text from Scripture, and um, these second pieces that I'm going to sing are from the Sephardic tradition, from the Jews, not actually the tradition in which I've been brought up, Eastern European Ashkenazi, but the Sephardic Jews, or those who were exiled from the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, at the time of the Inquisition, and they went, I believe, north and east and south and east, and so we have people headed to, that's how we get Turkey and Morocco, and that's how Flory's family, and Italy, and that's how Flory's family ended up in Yugoslavia. Um, yeah, so that's actually where her family's from, was outside Sarajevo in a small town called Vlasenica. Back to your question, I had the honor of discovering Flory's a prayer of hers online for the Shabbat candles. And when I found it, I was like, I just followed my nose, my heart. I was like, there must be music for this. And then I found her apprentice, Suzanne Galleta.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, and where's the, and then it was like, I landed on Flory. And then I found out from Eric Stein, the artistic director of Ashkenaz and a musical colleague, that Flory Jagoda was coming to the Ashkenaz Festival in Toronto that summer.
Oh.
I learned, then I learned all the music and I got prepared. I don't know what I thought I was going to do. I was going to sing for her. Anyways, and then Harry, her husband, was ill, so she had to stay home. So she came later. My mom and dad and I went to the concert. They came in, we went to the concert December 6th, 2008. I'm pretty sure that's the exact date. I have the program.
Mm-hmm.
After the concert, I went up to her and I said, you don't know me, but I want to study with you. And she put her arms around me and she said, "Baby, of course." And that was it. And so she became my nonna and my dear friend, and a teacher of the music she learned from her nonna, from her grandmother, that she was able to hold through being a survivor of only 3 people out of a family of 45 who were not murdered in the Holocaust. Including Nona. So she retained the music, luckily, and then she wrote new music. So the song that we are going to share with you all is a song written by Flory with words by Abraham Capon, a poet, about Spain, about the love of home, which is what they left. So the Sephardim, there's a sense of that yearning for home. There's a sense of always sort of carrying the key, la llave, that the keys to the home are still sort of held way back from that time when they had to leave. she changed my life, made it much richer, and I'm so thrilled to get to share in the beginning of the second half, to begin the second half with a moment from Nona Flory.
Right, right. That'll be an amazing thing that we're going to share, which we won't talk about. It's a surprise.
Oh, okay, yes, right. Right.
Wow.
But really, yeah, her voice will be just there for a moment. It's just very gentle and
Yeah.
sweet and subtle too.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And it's not, it's an oral tradition, presumably. It's not written down, right?
No, I mean that was I wish I could show you a picture. But yeah, in her studio space with all her like awards and pictures, and like it was just remarkable. Different instruments. Hers was the armonica, which is accordion.
Hmm.
That's how she escaped. She played harmonica. Her parents, she had blonde hair and blue eyes, and her parents said, put her on a train. She got out to go to the edge of the country and got out to a small Italian island. Anyways, they said to her, take your harmonica, play, and don't speak.
Hmm.
And so playing music was what saved her life. And then at some point, people wanted her to write it down because they wanted to pass it on. And certainly people have been collecting, all of the Jewish music, all those, field recordings and such, and trying to put it into music, into sheet music, so that it can be passed down, so it won't get lost. But I learned it from listening to her mostly, and although there were pages and each page had a different kind of arrangement and a different set of words, and it was meant to be shared this way, from woman to woman, mostly with women singing.
And maybe sometime in the future, someone's going to come up to you and say, hey, I've heard you singing this musical tradition and I want to learn, and you can then pass on that gift.
Well, yeah, I would be very honored. I usually, with humility, I usually pass to Susan, who really was her, like she just took the whole thing in. I was the second apprentice, and I was nowhere near as good a student. I was also at a great distance, but I say I was nowhere near as good a student. I think that my connection with Flory was very much about the conversations about love, about food, about being a female musician, about surviving. And I think that was a lot of what I took into my body, and what I have the honor of sharing with audiences everywhere I go around the world. I do one of her songs at least, and I share a little story, so that I am passing on the tradition and her wisdom, or her gifts.
Beautiful, beautiful. I've just got another couple minutes. It's Scott. So we've talked about the Adagio from Mahler's 10th, and there's some other music on here.
Sure.
For sure, there's some other music on here. Just tell me quickly the three other pieces.
Yeah, sure. The very first piece I heard of Ernest Bloch was his Concerto Grosso number 1, the first movement, the prelude, which was actually a favorite of my high school string orchestra. And I remember watching them play it, and okay, I guess this is going to show my bias, but it was one of the only times when I thought, man, it would be cool to be a string player. It's a really, really awesome work. And the prayer for solo cello is a beautiful melody that kind of brings to this concert something we didn't really explore necessarily a lot, but a certain kind of more, what's the word I'm looking for? Traditional kind of Ashkenazi sound. So it has some of that element to it, which was nice to bring to the concert. And it's just heart-wrenchingly beautiful melody. So, and I often have missives for my concerts, and we have an incredible flute player in our group. And we wanted to make sure that we feature her well for her and for our audience. And so I found this cute little, lovely little work by Bloch for flute and strings. which actually in our concert then ends up going into a duet with Aviva. So that should be very interesting. And yeah, and then Renouveau, the final work that we're playing on the first half, is again one of these examples where you're like, wow, he has such a breadth of voice, because it almost sounds like you're listening to Debussy or Ravel, in my opinion. It has a very French impressionistic sound. And also in choosing these works, I wanted them to, as you'll see, they go back and forth between Aviva's works, and they're conversing with each other in various ways, in sonic ways, in emotional ways. And I was just so happy when I found this piece. I'm like, how am I going to wrap all this together? And so it's the final movement of Evocations. It's a 3-movement work that we'll be performing, and it's just a lovely, lush orchestra work.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott, for curating, putting together this concert, putting so much depth and thought into every step and how each piece fits together. Thank you, Aviva, for joining us, for jumping into the unknown, into orchestra world. We're actually a very friendly bunch. I hope you found, and you'll find when we start rehearsals in the week of the concert. And thanks for joining me today.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everyone.
Great. So this is Tiferet, and this concert will be February the 26th at 7:30. This will be live streamed from Metropolitan United Church in London, Ontario. And live stream tickets are available. In-person tickets are available. Hooray! I think we've got lots available, so please join us. This interview will run from 7 o'clock live in-house. Not live, whatever. It will play in-house from 7 o'clock and online from 7 o'clock, and then the show starts at 7:30. Thanks again.